I got some really good news for you all. And this is news that most of us don't know. And that is, God doesn't care about the decline of the mainline denominations. God doesn't care about the decline of the mainline denominations. We care, and we're anxious and worried that what used to work in post-World War II suburbia doesn't work in the millennial era. But for God, this is just one single point in the history of God's movement of the entire universe. Take, for instance, the United Methodist Church. Before the United Methodist Church was the Anglican Church. Before the Anglican Church was the Catholic Church. Before the Catholic Church were all the millions of streams out of the early Christian movement. God has never been threatened by the evolution or the rise or fall of any Christian community, because God is always making things new and fresh in every moment and in every generation. I don't know what's next for us. It could be the death and the rebirth of something different. It could be the reformation of the Protestant denominations. What I do know is God is always with us, will never abandon us. So we can just relax a bit, you guys. Like, just relax and no longer see it as the kingdom of God lays upon my shoulders, because it doesn't, and it never, ever did. And let me just take a second to remind us that our worth and our value as humans and as leaders has nothing to do with the successes of our ministries. We teach this to our congregants, and yes, we rarely believe it for ourselves, that our value and our worth as leaders has nothing to do with the successes of our ministries. There is nothing we can do to earn God's love, to earn more of it. And there's nothing we can do to take God's love away from us. When I look around at fellow clergy and Christian leaders, I just see us getting so down on ourselves because we aren't able to raise the numbers, or because we're running budget deficits, or because the cool church down the street is bringing a ton more folks than we can. And I have to admit that I myself am not immune to this at all. 6 months ago, I was reappointed to a new church in St. Mark's in San Diego, the other coast. And it was quite a promotion for me, coming as an associate of another church and then moving on to be the senior minister in transition of a larger multi-staff congregation. I am the youngest person to ever hold this position in the history of the church, and I'm also the youngest person on the staff. And the reason why the cabinet and the church took such a big risk on somebody like me, when they in the past have chosen somebody with a lot more experience, is because they believed that if they just brought in a fresh young minister, that I could take it back to its 2,000 people glory days. That the young people would just start flocking in. I'm sure a lot of you understand what I'm going through right now. But I was not smart when I first got this appointment, and I rode that high of, I will take you back to those glory days. I will be that person. I appreciate your belief in me, and I will rise to the challenge. So I went in with a lot of energy and passion and optimism, started making changes right away, started working with the staff, started implementing a lot of changes in the worship service to make it much more excellent and relevant. And a few months into my time there are a couple of women in their 20s who showed up one morning. And I was like, ooh, this is working. I'm working. And they stuck out like a sore thumb in the middle of the crowds because They were decades younger than everybody else, and they dressed as if they had just stepped out of Brooklyn, New York. And after the service, I got to talking with them, and they found this church because they found some of my writing online, and they were like, I want to check this pastor out. This seems like the kind of pastor that I want to go to church with. But it became very clear that they would not be returning because the service was just way too traditional for them, and they wanted to be in a community with fellow 20-somethings and 30-somethings, which I totally understood, and then I blessed them on their way. And even though I had a smile on my face, inside, that just launched me into the biggest funk for the entire week of, I'm not going to be able to do this for these people. And I really, really am a big people pleaser, you guys. Like I'm sure many of you are, right? This is why we're good at what we do. We want to make magic happen for people. We like making magic happen for people. That's actually part of our gift set. And I just thought, short of creating a new service, which I wasn't ready to do yet, and the church, that's not what they wanted of me either, there was only so much that I can do to get those young people in the doors. And so I was doubting my capacity. I was doubting whether the cabinet and the church had made a good decision by taking a risk on me. And I was doubting even if I had chose the right vocation for myself, seeing as how I had chosen an area that was on its way out. And in the midst of my despair and my self-doubt, I heard God repeat one word to me over and over again. And that was the word gift. Gift. I gave this vocation to you as a gift, not as a test to see if you can make the church grow. I gave this vocation as a gift for you to experience more joy, not as a test to see if you can make the church grow. And then at that moment, I realized that I had it all backwards, that I was trying to save the church for God when God had already saved the church. I realized that I was trying to bless the church when God was trying to use the church to bless me. So what does this mean for us in our implications now in ministry with those three presuppositions in mind? First, God doesn't care about the decline of the mainline denominations. God is always working and moving in time, and this is just one single point in the history of the universe. Two, our worth and our value is infinite, uncompromising, and predetermined since the moment we were born, and it will never be taken away, no matter how successful or unsuccessful we are in ministry. And three, our vocation has been given to us as a gift to experience more joy. With these three presuppositions in mind, I'm going to propose a new approach to ministry, and that's this. We approach ministry like we play a game. I love games. Trivial Pursuit, Texas Hold'em, apples to apples, charades. I love every kind of game, and I also like to win. Some friends who have played with me know that I'm very competitive, and I bring my sharpest intellectual prowess. I trash talk. I strategize. It's not fun if you don't get competitive. It's not fun if people don't want to win. It's not fun if we're like, oh, that was a really hard question. Let me give you another one. Or, oh, that was almost a full house. Let's just give you that round. No, that's not fun that way. It's fun when you try hard. And here's the thing, if I lose a round, I don't think less of myself. I don't question my value or my identity or my worth. And if my friend wins, I'm really happy for her. But I don't think more of her, and I don't think less of her if she loses. In the same way, we bring our best selves to the game of ministry. We learn, We take classes on becoming better preachers. We learn about organizational leadership, on how to put together a team, about how to bring our creativity and innovation and imagination to create the most life-altering ministries for people, to help them to learn how to forgive and pursue their God-given dreams. But if one of our projects fails, which it probably will, and it probably has, I know that a lot of my projects have failed, it doesn't mean anything about our calling. It doesn't mean anything about God's power or presence in this world. It doesn't mean anything about our value or worth. It just means we lost a round, we take those lessons, and then we play another round with all of those things that we learned. The reason why it's so important to approach our ministries in the same way that we approach a game is because we bring in playfulness. We're less focused on the outcome and more focused on the strategies and having fun. And finally, it helps us from taking things just so personally and keeping a healthy distance from this vocation that can take so much of us, demand so much of us. There's a lot of crap going down in our generation, not least of which is a decline of the mainline denominations, but the decline of community groups in general, leading to a sense of isolation in our world. We spend more time on our devices than we do with other people. Environmental scientists are saying that we have a lot less time on this earth than we originally thought. The housing crisis is such that 2 full-time working people can't buy a home in an urban area. The government is shut down. I mean, there's a lot of crap going down in the midst of our world right now. But we Christians have the advantage of knowing the transcendent story that rises above all of this crap that goes on ground zero. That transcendent story, which is so clearly spoken to us in the passage that all of us know by heart. That God is our shepherd. We have everything we need. That God leads us beside still waters and green pastures and restores our soul. That we can walk through the darkest valley and not be afraid because God is always with us. That God sets a table before us in the front of our enemies and our cup overflows. And surely goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our lives, and we will dwell in the house of the Lord forevermore. And in our moments of anxiety and despair, and there are many to be anxious about, many moments to be anxious about, we have heard the famous words of Julian of Norwich, who she herself heard in her own difficult set of circumstances. All shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, no matter what. So why are we here? If we know the transcendent story that God has made everything well and everything is fine, then why are we here? Because I thought I was here to work. And the word that I keep hearing is gift. Because our lives and everything in it and our vocation is a gift for us to experience more joy. Our labor is a gift because humans are wired such that we're most alive and most fulfilled when we are contributing out of our strengths and our passions. That's when we feel most alive. So those 20-somethings never did come back. But since I have been there, young families have been trickling in through the door, as well as other visitors, which has been exciting to see. But even if none of my strategies were working, none of the cool projects that my team and I are putting together, even if none of that was working, it wouldn't matter, because that's not the point. The point is not that I'm growing my church, because remember, God is always alive and well, and the Christian community will always be alive and well. The point is that I'm experiencing my vocation as the most massive gift that God has given to me. Now, I know for those of us type A workaholics in this room, this might be really hard to believe, because everything in this world tells us the opposite message, that our worth and our value correlates to what we produce, that our worth and our value and our calling correlates to how successful we are in our ministries. But if we quiet the messages of this world and we still our hearts, we will hear a very different message speaking to us, spoken by the words of Jesus, recorded in the Gospel of John. I have come so that you may have joy, and that your joy may be made complete. I have come so that you may have joy, and your joy may be made complete. Thanks be to God.